In this segment, what I'd like to do is demonstrate lighting some of the various tips for the little torch, and also show some of the different gases. And in particular, today what we'll look at is acetylene gas, and we'll look at propane gas with the little torch, and a few of the various tips. You know, it's good to note that the little torch has tremendous flexibility, and is really, it's very small, and it would appear not to be able to do a bigger job, but it actually has a great deal of flexibility and is sort of a do-all in the jewelry industry. So it will work for very small projects, clear down to a watch safety chain, up onto larger, perhaps a bolo or a belt buckle. There's a number of things, and this torch will actually even cast up to 3 ounces of gold or silver with multi-flame heating tips, or some people refer to those as rosebud tips. What I'm going to do is I've got the pressures set, and typically the pressures for the little torch are adjusted for the tip size. In this case, I'm going to try to work with a single pressure to demonstrate all these tips, but I'm going to start out with a very small tip, and in this case we're going to start out with the number 3 tip, and this is for propane gas. We're going to show propane and oxygen is what we're using with this little torch. And I want you to see the difference between the propane oxygen flame and the oxygen acetylene flame with the little torch, and how we light those. We won't show all the tips today, but we'll show you the smallest to the largest so you can get an idea, and there's several tips in between, obviously. There are sizes 2 through 7, 7 being the largest tip. But with propane gas, or if you were to use propylene gas, a size 3 would be the smallest tip you could use. The 2 is actually too small to use with alternate fuel gases other than hydrogen or acetylene gas. So what we'll do, we always want to purge the gas before we light the torch, just to allow the gas to flow freely for a couple of seconds on each side. And then I've got an alcohol lamp here, and it's good to note that with the smaller tips, the number 3 with propane, or in this case, this one we have set up for acetylene, the size 2, it may be easier to light these with an alcohol lamp or a candle with an open flame versus a striker, which is used for lighting the larger tips, or the electric igniter that we have here, which is kind of a handy device. Now you'll also see that I have, it's a magnetic torch stand. There's a little tab that is applied to the torch. It's very simple. You pull the handle back, and this little clip that's on here actually slips over the top of these the tubes that you see here. And this can be put to the front, as you see here, or the back, either way, whichever you prefer. And then we simply screw the handle back on, so that tab is on that torch like that. This gives us a metallic surface, and this is a magnetic torch stand, and that allows us, it's really handy because you can get it out of your way. You can take it away from the bench, you can put it away out of the way if necessary, but you can clip your torch right to that metallic stand. The other feature that's nice about the stand is it's got holes here for anywhere from a size 1 to number 7 tip. These tips have very small numbers on them, so they're sort of difficult to see. So if you put them in the right spot, you can identify from the engraving on the stand what size tip you're using. You can just replace it and pull it right out of the stand. It can also be used, you can actually turn the tip up and work with it as a third hand if necessary, if you have an application for that. So what we're going to start out with is we're going to start out with this number 3, which is the smallest tip you can use, again, for propane. We've bled the torch out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to light this, and we're going to use this open flame. You can't, if you push this out too far, you'll notice it'll pop out. The flame will go out because there's too much gas for that tip. We're going to run it about right up to there, and then slowly add oxygen to that flame until that reduces down to a very, very, very small flame. And as we add oxygen to that, we want to bring it down to a small pinhead size like you see there. Just continue to add. If you go beyond that, it'll actually put that flame out. So that gives you an idea of how small that can be used with propane, or if you use propylene gas, you can do that as well. Now, what we did was we opened the fuel gas first slightly, lit the flame, and then add oxygen to it and brought it down to that pinpoint size, to a neutral flame. To extinguish this torch, what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the oxygen first, and then you'll see the oxygen has gone away, and now we're going to turn off the fuel. You can do it the other way. You can turn off the fuel first and then the oxygen. It's sort of to your preference. You can do it either way. We're trying to standardize on that in the industry to where we turn off the oxygen first and then the fuel second. So that illustrates the number 3 tip with propane. And now we're going to show you the size and how we light the larger tip. Now obviously with the bigger tip, a number 7, we would increase the pressures on this tip a fair amount so that we would use it. But we've got this set up at a high pressure right now. I'm just using a crescent wrench to tighten this up a little bit. Oftentimes you can just tighten these by hand. If you have a leak, it'll buzz or flame up a little bit around the tip nut, so you'll just shut it off and then relight it. Don't be alarmed. Again, purge the torch, allow the gas to flow for a couple of seconds, and then we're going to ignite this. So we're going to bring that out, and I can ignite it with that. I'm going to shut it off, or I can use this electric igniter to light that torch. Another way to do it is we can turn the gas on, and we'll use this friction lighter. Some people call it a striker. You put pressure down with your thumb so you got pressure on the flint lighter. Open this up slightly, and the gas will accumulate in the cup, and you can actually adjust it and light it down. So that's another way to light the alternate fuel gas, or in this case propane. So we're going to turn that up. Now if I turn that up too far, it's like we had before, it'll eventually get too far away from the tip and we add oxygen, the flame will go out. So what we're going to do is open that slightly again, light that flame, and we'll turn it up part way, add oxygen to it until this comes down, till that inner cone gets to a shorter point. We're going to work this up. With propane in the larger tips, you want to work the flame up a little bit, and that keeps the gas burning outside the tip rather than inside if we were to not to push enough gas through there. Now what I want to do is I want to add oxygen to that until that feather gets to its shortest point and then stop. If I go beyond that, I'm going to oxidize that flame. If I don't have enough, if I've got that out like that, that's carburizing, or some people would call it a reducing flame. So that shows you there's quite a difference in the size of the flames from a number 3 to a number 7. So this will do quite a great deal of work and provide a fair amount of heat. Again, to shut this off, we simply shut off the oxygen flame, just extinguish the oxygen flame, and then shut off the oxygen. Now we're going to show you the next tip, which would be our rosebud tip, or multi-flame heating tip. And I want you to look, if we could focus in on this just a little bit. This has a recess to it and has, I believe there's 6 orifices in the end of that tip. And the recess is because of the propane gas. These flames burn more efficiently and they burn better. You don't want to run acetylene through one of these these rosebud tips are with that are designed for propane gas. These should only be run with propane or propylene or natural gas. You can run any of those gases through this tip. Again, natural gas has to be at a pressure that's acceptable for that tip. So if you're using city gas, that may be an issue, because city gas sometimes it runs at a very, very low pressure typically, and there's not enough pressure to actually push it through the tip. So we're going to screw this one on to the torch now, to our little torch, and we're going to snug this down with the wrench, and I'm going to ignite this tip. I'll use I'll just use the electric igniter here. We're going to open that up until we get our flame, and we're not going to, again, you don't want to work it up too high right away. Add some oxygen to it, bring the flame down, add some more fuel, because again, we want to work this up, and we're going to force that fuel so this tip doesn't overheat, and it'll give us the most heat we need if we're going to do casting. You can use this also for annealing applications as well. So we're going to get that to a neutral flame, which is about right there. So I'll let you take a look at that. We shortened up those preheats by adding more oxygen to the flame. And this you would hold in your crucible in order to do your casting. But if you don't force enough fuel gas through this tip, it can overheat and cause the flame to pop out and backfire, or even it's feasible you could have a flashback in your system, which is something that's not very desirable, that's for sure, but it's a fire back in the system. So to extinguish this flame, once again, what I'm going to do is shut off my oxygen and then shut off my fuel. Now, when we're done with this procedure, typically what we want to do is bleed that system out. And we do that by shutting off the cylinders And then what we would do is each gas, bleed it out. So open the valve on the torch till that gas is completely flowed out of the torch, shut that valve, and then back out my regulator adjusting screw to the off position. And then do the same procedure with the other side, with the fuel side. So we're going to bleed that out till both needles drop on the regulator, and shut the valve off, and then back out the adjusting screw. But the first thing you always want to do before you shut your system down is shut the tanks off. Go to the source and shut that off first.